What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Parley, Real People, Real Talk. Today, my guest, Mr. Brad Varsava, the enlightened ones. Greetings and salutations, brother. Good to have you here, man.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Nice to be on here. So glad. I'm really excited about this opportunity, man. So
Okay,
nice to
man.
see you. You look fresh.
You like it?
Yeah.
You like it? It's the only place I'm fucking growing hair that's not gray now, eh? Yeah, it happens. So, yo,
Right.
bro, I want to have you on because not only are you like multidisciplined as well, but I gotta say, like, I always kind of admired how much you immersed yourself into the arts that you trained, especially the
Thanks.
Gatka. Like I always found it like I have a buddy of mine who does capoeira too, and the guy's he's an Aussie who learned how to speak Brazilian, and I just
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's crazy, man. And like I just start off with just saying like let me know how did you start off and how did you find that?
Yeah. So 20 years ago, all of our friends were doing Dog Brothers in Cali, right? And they were like, "Yeah, you want to join?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I really want to join, but I don't want to do Cali," right? So I guess I was kind of young and rebellious, and I said, "Let me see what I can do." And I went online and I started researching stick fighting arts, and Indian stuff came up. And the first one that popped up is the most, I guess, popular one, which is Kalari Payatu. And I did some research on it, and I was like, I don't know, they're not really hitting each other. That's like choreographed sequence, kata like movements, right? And then I came across Gutka and I watched a few videos and I'm like, oh, they're really hitting each other. That's not choreographed, right? And this is the funniest story. So I researched, this would have been like 2002, 2001.
Oh
And I'm
wow.
like, where do they teach Gutka in Ontario and in Toronto in Canada? And nothing came up. It's only India. And I was like, oh, that's rats. So I went to work that night and I was working at the YMCA and I was an attendant there. I was a trainer, kind of like a multi-purpose role. And I was giving a tour of the facility to some potentially new clients. And as I was walking in the gymnasium, young Sardar, which is a man who wears a turban, he was walking out and he had just finished a good workout. So he had a good pump on, right? He was looking really buff. And he had this t-shirt that said 11th annual Gutka camp, right? And I was like, oh, right? And I said, oh my gosh, excuse me, do you teach Gutka? And he goes, no, I don't teach Gutka. I was like, okay, do you do Gutka? He's like, yes, I do Gutka. And I was like, oh my gosh, will you teach me? No. And I was like, oh man. He's like, but I will introduce you to my teacher, right? And that kind of sparked that. So I got the number of this guy. His name is Sarjeet Singh, and he's
Yeah,
a
no,
legend. Yeah, he's a legend in the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, and he was teaching Gutka at a Sikh temple in Mississauga off Erin Mills Parkway. And he opened me with wide open arms and welcomed me into his academy and his school. And he really took me underneath his wing and taught me for many, many years and taught me the martial art of Gutka.
did you feel like nervous or apprehensions like you did
I
like
was going to throw up.
yeah like, I didn't I wouldn't have thought that they would have I mean, not to, you know, put anything negative on them, but I just thought that that was more of like a cultural thing. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
about how they would embrace somebody who was considered, I guess, an outsider, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I was nervous. I was really, really nervous. Up until this time, I didn't know what a samosa was. Never mind, like, anything, right, about Indian culture or Sikh culture or anything Punjabiism, as I now call it, right? And so we had a good long phone conversation that was about an hour long, and that was a Friday night. And then Saturday was the class, and classes were 3 hours long. So the first class I ever went into, the first 10 minutes, I mean, just walking in the facility, walking into the temple. I'd never been in anything like that, and I was like, butterflies and my heart's beating. But within seconds, they just made me feel like I was one of the guys. Right? They were just, let's train, let's work out. warm up, standard procedure, and it was just smooth sailing from there on in.
That's awesome. Well, I want to personally thank you. I know I already did, but I want to thank you for. I remember when you had us, not like you as Sergi, you guys had us in the temple as well. We came in there for some training.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know what to expect. That was the first time experiencing that. It was really, really amazing how friendly and accepting and like here's here's food, here's this, here's that. It was a great experience. So you are now teaching it, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been teaching now for 15 years.
Wow.
And yeah, it's really good stuff, right? So I actively have classes almost every day. I do teach privately, right? And it's been quite a journey, let me tell you.
Did you have to have like special permission to be able to teach Regatka?
Yeah, so within 3 or 4 years of training, and you got to remember that my training regime was significantly different than other men, right, and other young people at that time, right? So he took me underneath his wing and under a special apprenticeship format, which was never really formalized. But when you're training like 2 hours every single day, one-on-one personal training from a master, right? I mean, now I didn't see it when I was in my early 20s, right? But now, going forward, that's what it was. He was, in essence, conditioning me and preparing me to teach individuals, right? And he took me on all kinds of demos and events. I got to perform at the ROM, the Royal Ontario Museum, at the Spinning Wheel Film Festival in front of a crowd of 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
Very cool.
so yeah, very cool.
So how much of the training was because that kind of martial art that's very ingrained into the social and cultural fabric
Yeah.
of the how much of I know you had to train the art, but how much of it was spent when you were with them on the actual culture?
Yeah, it's intertwined. So a punch is not a punch. There is a belief behind the punch, right? And that's like an excellent question, Mark. So this is a true story. So first day class, right? And we're in the equivalent to like a horse stance, okay? And we're building, leg strength, and you're holding it and whatnot, right? And so, the clock is going, the timer's going. I can't remember how long it was. It seemed like it was like 5 hours. It was probably like a 5-minute horse stance or whatever, right? And they start going, va, gru, va, gru, va, gru, va, gru. And they all, like, one starts and then the whole group joins in. And I'm like completely like oblivious to it. So I just start saying it too. I'm like, va, gru, right? And I start going on with it. And at the end of the class, we're all kind of, just saying, how was it, Brad? Like, really thank you. And I was like, hey, I got to ask you something. Like, what's that word you guys were saying, right? And they're like, what word? And I'm like, Vaguru. And they did this, right? And they're like, you mean Vahiguru? And I was like, yeah, sure, Vahiguru, right? And they're like, and they all looked at each other. And I said, what does it mean? And they all looked and they're like, I guess the best way to say it is it means wonderful God. And I was like, you guys say that when you're in excruciating pain? And they're like, we say that all the time. And that's what sold me. That's my first class, those words, that experience with Sarjeet Singh. And that's what really attracted me, that they did not look for strength from without. They came from within, that spiritual connection with their religion, right? And their culture. And from then, there are certain etiquettes and there are certain procedures, there are certain rules that are ingrained within their culture that have melded into the martial art, and the two are the same, right?
Wow, that must do so much for like personal character development because it's true. Anytime you're in battle, anytime you're in sparring, anytime you're doing anything where you're facing adversity and your physicality becomes tired, that's
Yeah.
the only way you thrive is when you look to find that strength from within, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure. A really good example of that. is the time he brought his master in for a seminar, which was a week-long event, right? I attended a majority of the classes. And in a period of 90 minutes, I did 1,540 push-ups, 1,540 sit-ups, and 1,540 squats. And we had to dig deep on that one. And how they dig deep is they recite, I guess the word would be like hymns. They recite like religious hymns to give them and boost them up and like boost up the confidence. And they call it biras, which is like warrior spirit, right? And they dig deep with their vocalizations and the way that they express the actual words and the prayer. It's not really a prayer, it's more like a hymn, right? And that's how they dig deep, because I was like dead tired after that. Like, it was exhausting. That was the most intensive workout I've ever been in my life, right?
So the longer you've gotten to be with them, have you really learned their, I guess, their religious belief? Have you
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know everything. Well, okay, hold on. That's like over. That's jumping the gun. I have a very in-depth knowledge of Sikhism, right? So I myself am Sikh. I consider myself, I'm Sikh. I converted about 18 years ago. On the weekends and whatnot, I wear a turban. I go to the Gurdwara, right? People refer to me as Singh, and even as controversial as that is, that's what they do call me. I never say my name is Singh, but people do call me Singh in the community. I can read, write, and speak Punjabi. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot with him, right?
Where did you learn that with him?
Okay, so he really
wow, that's awesome, brother.
Yeah, he kind of opened the door, right? And so he provided the basics, right? Like, hello, how are you? Please, thank you. The etiquettes, the cultural slangs, do's and don'ts, right? But the time I spent with him was in a martial context, right? So he directed me to school. So I went to actual school for it, right? It's called Khalsa School. Yeah. And I attended school. I got to like what is the equivalent to like grade 4.
Wow. I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
You can read and write Punjabi, eh? Like, no shit. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fun, especially where I live and whatnot, right? Because like the South Asian and Punjabi community here is so high. It's the highest in North America in Brampton, right? So when like I start telling people like, hey, like how much is this? Don't like, don't try to rip me off and stuff. They're just like, right?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. So what's your first, like, I know you well enough to know you must have with somebody like that shit. Like, play stupid and then start speaking. What was that like? What was the response, and how did that make you feel when you first started being able to shock these people like by speaking their language?
It was really nice. It was really positive. 98% of the time, people recognize that I'm Canadian, right? Or Caucasian Canadian, right? And 2% of the time, they are under the impression that I'm either of mixed like ancestry, like I have like Indian, because I speak it so fluently, right? And I'll key in on that in a second. And then some people actually believe that I'm from a region of India that is known for, I guess, fair complexions and whatnot, right? But I'm very proud to say, no, I'm Canadian. Like, I'm of Russian descent. I'm of like Slavic descent, right? And I learned it. Here's how I learned it, right? So here's the big thing that like really throws people off, right? So I'll say something in Punjabi and I'll say it with a Canadian accent, right? So I'll translate it first before I say it. I'll say, hello, my name is Brad and I live in Brampton. My home is located in Brampton. Sat Sri Akal ji, mera naam Brad, mera ghar ye Brampton de vich, right? So that's Anji o Sat Sri Akal ji, mera naam Brad aur mera ghar ye Brampton de vich no, right? So it's like, whoa, right? Yeah, that's the accent. Being able to emulate the accent is really what separates it apart, right? And I think I'm very fortunate because the gentleman that pretty much, indoctrinated me into this, they are considered the highest order of Sikhs. It's not a caste thing. It's not something you're born into. It's something you become, right? It's an indoctrination process, right? and they are the warrior types, right? So my teacher, he is always armed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the shower, in bed. The only time he would be not armed is if he had to go on an airplane, which is like, safety protocols by, the TFSA and all that jazz, right? I actually remember one time picking him up at like 2 o'clock in the morning from the airport. And our airport is like it's just a madhouse, right? And we just got off the overpass and he's like, okay, you got to pull over. You got to pull over. You got to pull over. And I'm like, dude, like I'm still on the overpass. He's like, just pull over. And he had to go into his luggage and take out his weapon and put it back on his body. Right. So like, it's a very serious thing.
What is that weapon that they wear called?
So it's typically known as a kirpan, right? At the higher level, though, it would be called a Siri Sahib. So a kirpan is, I have one here. Do you want to see it real quick?
Yeah, grab it.
Okay.
Some people are just listening on Spotify. Some people might watch this on YouTube. If they're watching on YouTube, they'll be able to see what the blade looks like. That's amazing. I had no idea this guy went to school and learned it.
Yeah. So this is traditionally known as the kirpan, which is a single-edged, full, solid metal piece dagger, right? And it is the article of faith for the baptized Sikh, right? So every Sikh male and female who undertake the process called amrit, right? They would carry this with them 24/7, right? When you get to the higher level of it, and like I said, this is not like you don't have to buy your way in. It's nothing like that, right? Okay, it's a step you take. It's a commitment you make between yourself and your teacher, right? You then pick up the Siri Sahib, right? So this is a Siri Sahib.
That's what they walk around with?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so like I was at... Yeah, go on.
And they're allowed to do so because it's considered a religious...
They're a religious article of faith, right? It's recognized by the Indian Constitution. It's recognized here under our Canadian Rights and Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I was really proud the other day. I was in Shoppers Drug Mart, and there was a Singh, which is like a male Sikh, and he had the 3-foot-long sword on. I was like, yo, I started speaking to him in Punjabi, and this guy's like buying shampoo, right? And he's just like, I don't even know what to say to you, dude. Like, your Punjabi's on point, right? And I was like, yo, let me take a picture. Let me put this on Instagram. And I'm telling him in Punjabi, like, I think he's so handsome and I'm so happy and he makes my heart sing. That's like the literal translation to it, right? That like, seeing you like abide by the old ways and the ancient customs really makes me feel good.
What about that culture that you think, like that positive aspect, the empowering aspect of that warrior spirit or tribe?
Yeah.
What about that do you think still spills over and translates well into how the modern day Punjab is in a Western society?
Yeah. The concept in Sikhism is in Punjabi, it's referred to as Sant Sapayu, right? So to have the heart and mind and spirit of a saint and to have the physical body of a warrior, of a soldier, right? And we often see that, that Punjabis are what I would refer to as brave hearts or sheer hearts, right? They're absolutely brave people, right? Who have endured countless obstacles and hurdles and have overcome, right? I mean, the temple, right? The holy site is made out of solid gold. It's called the Golden Temple, right? So they've put an exhausting amount of financial resources into their faith. They've put hours and hours and hours and countless sacrifices to make successful businesses. I mean, you hear so many of our success stories, the immigrant success story here in Canada. I came here with literally nothing, and then I built this something for myself and my family. There's so many people. Nav Bhatia is a perfect example of the Raptors super fan, right? He's a great
Yeah.
example of it. Yeah, right. And then you look at how many Indian restaurants there are in the GTA, and a majority of the Indian restaurants are actually Punjabi restaurants, right? And that comes with, you know, an indomitable spirit that the warriormanship uh, brings out in a person, right? So it's just an awesome concept that they live by. It's something that really attracted me, and I keep learning about it, keep growing, keep delving into it every single day.
Speaking about the physicality, I understand now. It kind of clears the picture a little bit more. I mean, but us as martial artists, we all have that physical uh, aspect to us. But you've been really killing it lately. Like you motivated me a lot to start losing some. You and between you and Joy's mental abuse and calling me fat, it really made me start losing weight. But you were getting up early every morning and putting in the work, and it was really good to see. Was
Thanks.
that something that you've been doing all along, or did something spark you to really push and focus on that and actually show it too?
Yeah, I think so I would do that like intermittently, but now since the pandemic, I'm up at 6 a.m. every day working out, right? That's a consistent thing. And it does have a little bit to do with the religion. So my teachers, they will rise at 4:30 a.m. That's like a standard hour for them. They bathe ceremoniously, and then they recite their hymns and their prayers, and then they work out, right? Like my current coach, he is an animal, right? And you know, he runs like 5 or 6 kilometers. He does probably about 300-400 push-ups and squats and like a variety of other exercises every day. This is all before 8 a.m., right? And it all has to do and tie into that warriormanship, right? So when I look at that, I'm like, hey man, if my 55-year-old coach can do this, I can definitely do this, right?
Yeah,
So
lead by example.
yeah, lead by example, right? And then I started posting it to kind of like, I guess, hold myself accountable in some ways because I didn't want to slack. And you know, there's oftentimes you'll see me talking on my little rants about like how I did not want to run today, I did not want to do burpees today, I did not want to fast for 23 hours, right? And but I did it, right? And then, you know, I'm glad that I did, and I'm sharing that with the community.
You're like the I see you working in your home dojo there, and
Yeah.
the classes are growing. How many students do you have coming to learn? And is it specifically they're coming for Gatka?
So I teach like I teach a variety of it, right? So I have some students that come for judo, some students that come for Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and then some of the Indian martial arts. Oh, a lot of it is Indian martial arts now, right? So I have like over 20 students that I try to accommodate in a 400 square foot facility, which is my garage, the Brojo, right? So it's challenging, right? And teaching it in a one-on-one, hand over hand format for like 6 to 8 hours a day is exhausting at times, but well worth it, right?
For those who don't know, you have your black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, so you're a
Yeah,
professor,
yeah,
and you're also a black belt in Judo, and they call that what, a sensei?
yeah.
So, what did you, what rank did you acquire first? Like, what was your original background? Was it the Judo?
Yeah, so I have a medal from 1989. That was my first medal. And I probably did judo before that, but I can't remember. My dad is late and passed, so he couldn't tell you either, right? So 89, definitely started judo. Um, I grew up with judo up until 98 is when I met Sifu, right? Okay, and started training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I won my first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gold medal in 2001. And then in 2021, I won my
Yes.
most recent gold medal, I guess, if you call it, right? And then in 2022, I got a couple silvers, but I guess I got to train harder, right?
Well,
So,
the cool thing was is I saw you working out and building up to that gold medal, which was
yeah,
fucking really
yeah,
cool. Because I was starting to see your posts were consistent. And I was like, oh, good for him, he's killing it. And then when I saw you on the podium with the gold, I can't tell, bro. I was so happy for you, man. I was like,
thanks, man.
right, man. I love seeing people I know. working hard and achieving what the things that they go for. It's really, for me, I love it. Motivates me like crazy.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. Yeah, it was definitely, that was like the road to the world championships, right? And you know, I had a lot of people supporting me, pushing me, driving me. My professor was really on me hard, right? Every single day. And I had coaches that were supporting me throughout the whole process. So yeah, it was really, really cool.
How much of the mindset that you learned from the Gatka has spilled over into now how you train your jiu-jitsu and your judo? How is that mentality with that warrior spirit heightened your other training?
Yeah, I would say tenfold, right? So every time I'm exhausted, right? Every time I'm like low, and we all get there, right? You know, one way or the other, whether you train martial arts or you don't, right? That word Vaiguru, right, is an empowering word that like brings uplifting spirits, right? In Punjabi, we call it chardi kala, which means always in high spirits, right? So no matter what adversity you're undergoing or about to undertake, you are chardi kala, always in good spirits. So there were some times during that training camp when I would look up at the clock and I was crying inside, like I'm just bawling, right? Because I can't do this no more. Like I just I want to go home, right? And you know, you take a deep breath, Vaiguru, right? And I owe a lot of that to Sarjeet. You know, he and his associates and my training partners, you know, who helped me out, right? And there's so many to name. Everyone that was involved in that Yutkatka Kara there, right? Really, really forged me into the person I am today, right?
How often do you still go and visit them?
So he is retired. He is officially retired, right?
Oh, really?
So yeah. So unfortunately, he has taken a significant step back from the public eye, and he's just concentrating on himself and his family life, and he's officially retired. I do meet up with his students though. So the guy who had that shirt on that I told you about in the beginning, 11th annual Gatka camp,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I teach his children now, right?
Oh,
Which is
really?
really cool. Yeah. And he was a member, an integral part of the Akara or the group. And then another training partner of mine, um, he comes over from time to time, and when we get together and we talk and we discuss ideas and we kind of pressure test techniques together. We've been training for like 20 years. We've known each other. I mean, we've been through the ringers together in the dojo and outside of the dojo, so that's good. But about 10 years ago, kind of when things were winding down with the Gatka, I met my current coach, right, who is my official now Indian martial arts instructor, Gurudev Nidar Singh Nihang, right, and I study Shastra Vidya underneath him, and I've been doing so for 10 years. And about 2 years ago, he said, "Yeah, you can start showing this to people. Like you're okay now."
Yeah, I've seen him online, and I know he's been to Zerger Academy before and shown some
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I haven't had the chance to work with him yet. How different is his Shastar video from the Gatka?
Oh, it's night and day, man. It's
What's the main difference?
yeah. So I can compare it like this, right? So Shastra Vidya is the mother art, right? That is the ancient battlefield combat techniques, right? And sometime around like 14, 1500, like kind of when we started as like a world population to kind of start move towards civilized life, right? And like, you know, we start indoctrinating codes of conduct and ethics, and constitutions start coming about, and et cetera, Gatka emerges. So the way that it's looked at today is Gatka is a competitive sporting game, right? It has martial-like movements, right? And teaches a lot of dexterity, strength, speed, skill, athleticism, etc. Right? But there are like really clear, defined rules, right? Shastra Vidya is the battlefield martial art, right? And the best comparison I can make it is jujitsu and judo, So jiu-jitsu was the original martial art of the samurai, right? And it's how to kill somebody, right? When we go into the modern age in the 1880s, this guy comes along. He's like, listen, this stuff's really cool. It's really awesome. I think it would benefit a lot of people, but we can't teach children how to break someone's neck, right? Like, it's not appropriate. So let's start stripping away a lot of the dangerous stuff, keep a lot of the fun things, and turn it into the sporting game, right? So Shastra Vidya deals a lot with quick, destructive techniques, and Gatka is more rule sport based.
Do they share the same arsenal of weaponry?
No. So though they do overlap, right? They are significantly different, right? So a Gatka, so they worship weapons, right? So the Sikhs do worship weapons, and when I say worship weapons, I've encountered many baptized Sikhs, like dozens of them, who will own a home, right, and have a spare bedroom with a bed where weapons lay on that bed, and no one is allowed to go on that bed. You're not allowed to be higher than that bed. And in India, it gets so far that they sleep below, so they sleep on the floor and the weapons sleep on the bed, right, because they hold it in the utmost reverence. So a Gatka player will respect, worship, and cherish all of the weapons, but won't have knowledge over them all. They have an extreme knowledge over a handful of them, and they're very dexterous and very good with a handful of them. But a lot of the ancient weapons and the way to use them appropriately are only contained within Shastra Vidya.
What are some of the ancient weapons that you're speaking to?
For sure. So yeah, that's a good question. So first and foremost is the war bangle, right? So this is a mandated piece and article of faith for the baptized Sikh, and this is an iron bracelet bestowed to Sikhs by the 10th Master Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj. So many Gatka players will wear this, right? But this can be turned into a fighting form, right? And we call it low musht, which means the iron fist, and it's a certain way of boxing. And during the 1800s, a French reporter was in India, and he was describing how they used it in the armies of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and he said it's just unchristian-like, right? Those were his exact words translated. So that's one weapon in Shastra Vidya that's not popular in Gatka.
But I noticed a lot of the Punjabis, they have those bracelets.
Yeah, it's for Sikhs, right? It's an ancient weapon that predates Sikhism, but it was adopted by Sikhs.
But most people, most Sikhs who are given this, are they taught the art? Does the art have to be taught how to use it to go along with it?
No, not necessarily. It's mandated, right? So they put it on babies, right? No, obviously not one like this, right? This is the war bracelet, right? But a thin iron bangle, and what it represents is, so iron is pure, right? It's an element, and that's why he chose iron. And then the round circular, so it has no seam. It's there's no weld or whatever, and it's a perfect union with God, right? It never started, nor shall it ever end. It will always be. Right? That's the premonition of it. So no, it's not taught. I'm often asked to teach seminars. I'm often asked to, show the knowledge. I'm kind of like, this is a really dangerous thing, man, right? Because it's so accessible.
Why do you hesitate if the demand is there? And is it something that's kind of like you don't want to have a responsibility?
Yeah. Because here's the thing, right? I'm not too concerned about teaching young men how to sword fight, because access to quality swords that are combat ready is difficult. It's in Brampton, it's very hard to get these things. Okay, right? So if you come to my training hall, you learn directly underneath me. There is safety, there is supervision. This thing, you can buy it in like a half a dozen places down the street from me, right? Like so many Indian stores sell this thing, right? So I don't want to show people how to, be, and it's not in today's modern context, it shouldn't be a weapon of war, though it was originally designed as that, right? It's meant for a thing of peace. Another tool that is common in between both of them is the katar, right? So this is the Indian punch dagger, right? This is a 300-year-old weapon, and would have been worn in the waistband, right? And learned how to use appropriately. I guess so. It's used in both Gatka and Shastra Vidya, right? They're used significantly different, the two styles, right? But one of the odder ones is a Bishwa, right? So this is a handheld dagger, right? And this got lost in Gatka, right? So this is a Shastra Vidya weapon, and it's combined with the Katar, right? And it's used for trapping and snaring, right? Taking away someone's kinetic energy, right? And deploying it. So those are the things that, you know, my teacher, he taught me how to use them, right? And then the most important, I think, is that Shastra Vidya has principles, Gatka has techniques, right? So Gatka is boxed in, and there's a lot of room for movement in the art, right? But Shastra Vidya abides by principles. So you can have, with one principle, you can have like 500 techniques flow from a principle.
What is the most pronounced principle that is taught in Shastra Vidya?
Kumbh, right? So Kumbh is the most. So the day I met, so basically, let me give you a little background about this guy, right? So 20 years ago, this dude from India puts out a website, and my teacher, his name's Nadar Singh, right? Puts out a website, says, I'm the last Sikh warrior, right? I teach, I'm the only one with the information. I'm the only one that's got the real knowledge, right? And I'm the last Sikh warrior. Well, that like it caused an uproar in the community, right? Like
I think I saw some videos of some guys from temples like saying this guy. Yeah, I think.
Oh yeah. You see those videos,
Yeah.
right? Like right. It's absolutely crazy and bananas. So he's put out a lot of media footage, right? Social media footage on what he does, et cetera, et cetera. So one day I was at work 10 years ago. A buddy of mine called me. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm at work." And he goes, "Nadar's at my house right now. Do you want to come meet him?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there right away." I rushed over there. When I got there, like I opened the door and this young man answered the door. He's like, "Hello." And he's like, you know, kind of like, "What do you want?" Right? And so I started speaking to him in Punjabi. I told him who I am and like who I'm here to see. And he was like, "Whoa." And obviously from the noise and my speaking, my teacher kind of poked his head around the corner to say like, "What's going on?" Right? So the first thing I noticed is he's like a physically large man, right? He's like 6'3". He's well over like 220 pounds. He's a physically large human being, right? So he invited me in, and I explained to like, you know, I'm a friend of Harry. This is Harry's house, right? And everything. And he's like, "Yeah, cool." And he's like, "Do you do any martial arts?" And I'm like, yeah, I have a little bit of training. And he's like, "Okay, well," he's like, "Do you know what we do?" And I'm like, "I've only seen you online. I'd like to experience it." And that was 4:30 p.m. So in that room, there were like two adolescent young Indian guys and Fred. And Fred is the highest ranked North American, true American Silat practitioner. And he's the president of United States Northeast Silat chapter, right? He's like, the way he described it to me is like the equivalent to like a sixth Dan, right? In Silat. Harimau, the tiger style, right? Yeah. Right. And so from about 4:30 to about 9:30 p.m., Fred and I gave this guy everything. And in those 5 hours, after the 5 hours, I was like drenched in sweat, just covered in sweat. And I had my hands on my knees and I was panting. And I looked up at Fred and I said, "Are you trying to get him with everything you got?" And he looked at me and he said, "Everything I got." And my teacher's dancing around like this, goes, "Oh, I've got magical powers," right? So he introduced me to the power of Kumbh, right? And for the last 10 years, I've been trying to master it and acquire it. Okay, what is Kumbh? It's nothing magical. It's not like chi. It can be scientifically explained, right? what any human can do, and you would have grown up with this, you would have totally known this with your kickboxing background. Do you remember dial scale? So when you got on the scale, it spun. And yeah, okay. So let's say you got on the scale and it said 160 pounds, right?
Yeah.
You leaned a certain way. You didn't jump or hop, but you just leaned a certain way, and that scale would go up to like 165. Agreed? Yeah, something like that ballpark. Now, you're not technically 165 pounds, but what you've engaged in is mass, right? You've accelerated your weight through movement and henceforth become heavier, right? So what he can do, and what like a lot of us can do now through his tutelage, is I'm 201 slim pounds right now, Mark. So I can take a majority of my weight, put it in my hand, and put it on you, right? And when you get into certain fighting systems like clinch, grappling, or mount, and I put this on your face, life becomes horrible for you or anyone experiencing it, right? What can then be done through exercise and training is that you can put it in a weapon. So you can extend your body, right? And put 200 pounds at the tip of that weapon, right? So while most of us have been taught to generate power through kinetic force, right? Wind up, swing, build off the ground, pivot through, right? He has a completely different approach. He teaches through correct structural alignment, right? I can force my weight into this object and drop it on you.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool, man.
I can see, like, right when you were explaining it, I was already thinking, like, holy shit, your top game must feel like
the insane pressure. Yeah,
it's like a cement. Because if you're able to do that, if you're able to channel that, and you can transfer that to other arts, that's a game changer.
It's so 1 year we were together. I spent a week with him 1 year, like every day, right? Like I just didn't sleep with him, right? So from like early in the morning till bedtime, right? Every day. And he took my teep and he created a monster out of it, right? And he really showed me how to structurally align the push kick to drive forward my energy, right? And I just had it's so successful. The second thing that I really enjoy about the art is that he teaches a unique system of movement, right? So what we are able to do is through mass spilling, which is being able to take my body weight and propel it forward, right? Without muscular explosion or muscular dexterity. I can increase my range and my distance. So he teaches a principle called long, right? It's a Sanskrit word. I don't really speak Sanskrit. My Punjabi is like 100 times better than my Sanskrit. It just means small step. That's pretty much it, right? So I think my small step was gauged at about like 18 inches or something like that. It's just the normal gait that you walk in, right? And through this technique that he teaches, I was able to expand it by 8 inches to 24 inches. So now in one step, I can cross 2 feet of terrain, right? And you have to remember that, like, you know, and you very well, anyone who's watching this with martial context, if you're in that boxing range and you're throwing that jab, right? And the guy knows, oh, I've got 3 inches on this dude, he won't touch me. And then you set up the long step. Oh my gosh, you smash through your target, and it's absolutely devastating.
That's one of the things I'm actually pretty good at, is closing distance. So I think I would like to get together with you and kind of experience this kind of.
You're welcome anytime, brother.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just a matter of time. But like, I work stupid. I'm working like 3 jobs right now. It's crazy.
I know.
But no, definitely. Like, the weather's getting better. I'm gonna come there for sure. But man, I had no idea that you were training with that specific guy for this long.
Yeah. So he comes over. So we have 2 sessions, right? We have open door sessions and we have closed door sessions.
Right.
and closed door sessions. It's not like anything secretive and stuff like that, right? It's not like, he's waving the wand and insensitive, nothing like that. It's just that he's more comfortable. He'll talk more openly, right, with senior students, right? Like, so he's extremely professional. He's extremely friendly. He's extremely joyous to the public. He's like that with all of us, right? But with the senior guys, he's more open, right? You know what I mean? Just as anybody would, right? Like the way you and I hang out wouldn't be the same way as if I were to be introduced to your coworkers. I'd be a little bit more, reserved, up and proper, right? So he holds numerous seminars where he, tries to promote the art to as many people as he can, and it's not limited to anybody. Anyone can learn it as long as you have good intentions. He's more than happy to teach you.
Does he have a brick and mortar? Does he have like a headquarters or a particular location that he runs it, or is he just
No, that's the thing about Nihangs, right? So he's a Nihang, right? So they are, what do you call it? Nomadic people. So Nihangs in Punjab, they have no stationary place. They move in groups and bands from village to village and gurdwara to gurdwara, right? They're horse people, and they live in tents and stuff like that, right? And so he goes everywhere.
But he's usually in Europe, right?
He usually, he's got that European passport, right? The EU kind of thing, right? Right now he's in India. He's in Goa for a little bit, and then in a few weeks he'll be in San Francisco, and then in early spring, which I believe in May, he's here in Toronto for like a month and a half.
And where is he going to be when he comes down here? Is he going to be doing
in Toronto?
Is he going to be Toronto. But is it going to be like private sessions at people's homes, or is it going to be at a gym where he's going to hold a seminar?
So the gym seminar will be happening. There will be 2 seminars we're going to try to promote. So you have to understand, he's kind of a figure in the community, right? And a lot of people who don't even train, they don't do martial arts, they just want to meet him. They just want to say wow, I watch your stuff. You're like a true link to the past kind of thing, right? So we're going to kind of have 2 seminars this year. At least that's my plan so far with it, is to have that meet and greet. And it's just ask questions, show stuff. And then maybe a week or 2 later, the actual seminar where you can come learn the martial art.
Yeah, I'm down for that. Let me know about that, bro.
For sure.
Good question. So I'm just a little bit curious now with the differences and the similarities between Gatka and the other art.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things that I liked about the Gatka when I was there to witness it was, and believe it or not, Sarabjit, I actually met him because he was a friend of Daryl's, who was somebody I started. That's where I started. Well, I didn't start there, but that's where I got majority of my Japanese jiu-jitsu. I still continue with Scott Taylor.
Yep.
But that's where I met Sarabjit. But when I met him, and then again at the temple when I came and visit, I liked how they laid out their blankets and they had the weaponry on the blanket.
Yeah.
But one thing is, for those who are not aware, the level of respect or how they treated the weapon is before they even touch it, they bowed to it. They had a gesture where they raised their hands to their head.
Yeah.
And then they would say something as they grabbed it or picked it up. And then when they put it down, they did the same thing. So it really is an important piece of their being. Yeah. Does that other art, do they do the same thing, or is it slightly different?
It's a little bit different, right? So Gatka is really, really, really heavily influenced by Sikhism, right? Shastra Vidya predates kind of man-made religion, if you will, right? So you had, let's say 16th century India, okay? Prime time medieval India, right? That word Shastra Vidya, so it's like a martial art, right? Would have been practiced by 4 or 5 different religious clans, groups, right? So you had Hindus, and within the Hindus, there were the Rajputs, who were the masters of it. Then you had the Mohammedans and the Mughals, right? So Akbar himself was a master of Shastra Vidya, right? He was the emperor of India in the 16th century. And every night he had a sword come to his bed. So he had 365 plus different swords that were brought into his, every night. A new sword would have been brought to his bed, right? Because it's that weapon worship, what you discussed, right? Sikhs came around the 17th century with the actual worshiping. And then you would have had like a few other smaller clans and whatnot, right? That would have been practicing, right? Reverence is there. There is high reverence. There is high respect given, right? But a lot of the, how should I say this? Ritualization is not there. It's like you treat it with respect. Like it could never go on the ground, right? The weapon could never be placed on the ground. Like that's a definite no. We got to have tables. We got to have them up off the ground. They've got to be given thing. But like the words that you're talking about, which is called the agya, right? And the fatenama, right? That's not really done in Shastra Vidya.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do they do? What is their customs? What is their do they have like a secret?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So in Shastra Vidya, you're led by a Gurdev, right? Which is just a master teacher, right? A teacher. Let's put it that way, right? A teacher. So the reverence is for the teacher, right? So when the teacher enters the room, everyone goes up and salutes the teacher, right? That's it, right? Being European, he's pretty cool, right? Like, like he's Indian, but with a little bit of a British twist, yeah, right? So I love him because he is a blast from the past with a modern twist, right? So he does, I wouldn't say expect the salutation, but the salutation is done. And then he's like, all right, come on in, guys, let's go. And then he'll just start training, right? Like he'll just start grabbing guy, punch, kick, right? And then here's what we're working on today, right? And then that training lasts like the whole day, right? They train like 14 hours a day.
So with the FMA community, right? They have their outlets where they compete or they have sport.
Yeah.
We got guys who are more like the dog brother kind of guys where it's not.
Yeah.
Do the Gatka or do the Shastra Vidya community have something similar?
So Gatka does it all the time, and the tournaments are crazy, right? I was at one last summer. It was awesome.
But it's all low key. It's all like within just the community.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is within the Sikh community, right? Because it's religious based, right? So you won't have like a person who's not Sikh, because there are, how should I say this? I don't know. Like, what's the word hallelujah mean, Mark? Like not mean, but like, how would you describe that? Like, it's a Christian
It's like
term?
A proclamation of belief.
Yo, that is a beautiful word for it. Proclamation. So in Gatka tournaments in Brampton, the GTA, North America, because they're all over North America now, you have to make Sikh proclamations. Now, the Sikh proclamations do not denote that you are Sikh. They are promoting the tenets of Sikhism.
And all these are they held inside the temple? These tournaments or competitions?
99% of them, yeah.
And now, do they have like rival temples against other groups?
That's a good question, right? So I don't know if the word would be like, okay, so rivals.
Let's say competitive.
Yeah, definitely 100%. That is 100 competitive. Yeah, definitely, right? So they're called jattas. It just means band, right? Like band of people, right? And you can have different jattas. You can have like a music jatta, which is like a literal band, right? You can have like a poetic jatta, right? Okay. And then you have like gatka jattas, right? And they get together, and so there are like formal competitions with like prizes that are like awarded thousands and thousands of dollars and trophies.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think last year they gave out 10 grand.
What? To the winner? Single person?
It was probably like 6 to the top place, and then like the kids got like a grand, and like there's like you can't like have like a child compete against an adult, right?
I'll tell you what, if somebody offered me 6 grand to win, I'm fucking smashing.
You're doing it, eh? Yeah, I know, right? So there's that, right? So in Shastra Vidya, they have no competitions and no how should I say it, like competitive sparring.
They don't have competitive sparring.
No, so there's like no, okay, so like both you and I come from a competitive sporting background, so like I'm gonna say stuff you'll totally relate to it. Hopefully most of the listeners can too. Kick, like you remember full contact karate back in the day, like what was it, like a shot to the body was 1 and like head 2.
Yeah.
Right. And
Or
like
vice versa.
What's that?
Or vice versa.
Yeah, something like that, right? And then like in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you take the guy down, that's 2, mount him 4, right? There's absolutely like none of that in Shastra Vidya. There's 2 types of sparring. There's obviously unarmed sparring and armed sparring, right? So unarmed sparring is known as Sanchi, and it's done at different levels, like depending on your age and your experience, right? And like when I do Sanchi, as you can see in like some of my videos on Instagram, it's intense, right? Like you're getting your bell rung, right? And with weapon sparring, there's absolutely no contact, right? And it's a really humbling, enlightening experience.
Is that for safety?
Yeah, they spar with razor sharp swords, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that they don't go with like a more blunt, like a training weapon, just so that they can be able to get that kind of.
Yeah, so it's against their ethos. So yeah, so with the religion creeping into it, they believe that the goddess resides in the edge of the sword, and they do numerous rituals to
Which
appease.
goddess is this?
So the goddess Chandi, right, and the goddess of my teacher's Akara, which is like training group, is Jagdambe Mata. Right, the 8-armed goddess of war and fortune.
Is that the same statue they have like in by they have that statue in by where the CERN is? They have that statue of the looks like I don't know if it's a Hindu or
so it's a Hindu goddess. Yeah, it's a Hindu goddess.
She's known.
She in some depictions is riding a lion or a tiger, right? And she has 8 arms. Okay, and each arm is armed with a weapon, like a sword, a bow, an arrow, a throwing disc, a katara, a dagger, an axe, etc. And then when she dismounts the beast, right, the tiger or the lion, she is known as Jagdambe, and she removes one weapon from her hand. So she has 7 hands that are outstretched upwards with weaponry, and one hand like guided towards us, blessing us.
Well, that's wild, man. Like there's so much to the art that's tied into religion. I don't know if there's any other arts that are like that.
I really haven't found one. I've read a lot of historical accounts about like Templar knights and Teutonic knights and stuff like that, right? And Shaolin monks, obviously, right? But nothing like this.
Well, the Shaolin monks, I think, would be the closest ones because of their Buddha.
Yeah, the Buddha palm, right? Yeah, Lohan boxing, Arahat boxing, yeah.
So you were mentioning that they had a different types of, I'm not sure what they call it, but the instrument, the musicians when they're playing. Do they have something that would represent like how, let's say, in Muay Thai, while the music's playing, it dictates the pace?
Yeah. That's a really good question. Yeah. So, okay. So they have the Nagara, which is the war drum, right? So it is a massive drum. I don't know. It's about like a small Nagara would be like 2 feet in diameter. A large Nagara would be like 4 feet in diameter. And then most are about 3 feet in diameter. So it's a large animal skin drum, right? And it's beaten with 2 sticks that are slightly curved. They have that, and then they have conch or shank, right? So conch in English, shank in their language, it's the trump, like the shell, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, the conch, yeah.
Yeah, the conch shell. So that's traditional. Like that's like from Hindu times. Sikhs also use it, right? But the Sikh one is it's a trumpet, right? So it's a curved trumpet with a mouth of a water demon, right? Opening up, and they blow that and stuff like that during these festivals and stuff like that. It's really cool.
So when they actually like fight though, when they're sparring or when they have
Yeah,
these shots
they
of
beat the Nagara. Yeah, there's a tone. I never really got into it, dude. I'm so not into music. Like I really try. Like I tried to learn how to play the harmonium, which is like a traditional Sikh thing. And the lady turned to me. She goes, "You sound like a wrestler." I was like, "I am a wrestler." You know? Yeah. Like I'm not musically inclined. I don't know what a G note is. Like I failed like grade 8 music. Like you know what I mean? Yeah.
can't be good at everything, man, but you definitely
Yeah.
got good skills. I'll tell you that. So one last question I want to hit before I wrap this up. How long after being immersed into the culture and stuff like that did you meet your significant other, and what was that like being introduced into the family, and how did that all go down? Because I would imagine that would be quite like you'd have to prove yourself quite a bit.
Yeah. So my wife, I met her 15 years ago this June, right?
Wow.
And yeah, right. Um, so how did that go down? That's a great. So it went down really well. Like they were very. So my wife is from Sri Lanka, right? And she's Buddhist, and so it's a Aryan driven language. So the traditional word for water in Punjabi is jal, and the traditional word in Sinhalese, which is her language, is jal, right? So there's a lot of similarities and stuff like that. So when I met my wife, she was like just mad cool. She's just like the coolest person. I mean, that's why I married her, right? Right? Um, it was a bit of a culture shock, I guess growing up, like how we did Canadian European, right?
Yeah.
So, like I came and met her mom like the first night, right? Like, not the first day I ever met her mom. Like, I came over for dinner. Hi, how are you? What's your name? Good. So do you have a job? Yes. Okay. And do you have mom and dad? I'm like, yeah. And I have a sister. Okay. What do you want to do with my daughter? What are your intentions? Right? Like, I was like really put off by that question. I was like, whoa, right? And then her sisters, she comes from 3 sisters. She's one of 4. And they're really cool. They're mad cool, right? My brother-in-law's super nice guys. My father-in-law, when he was alive, was a great guy to me. He was really, really cool with me. Her extended family were like really, really cool. And the joke that my mother-in-law tells everybody, right? So my wife is the youngest of 4, and the traditional Sri Lankan outfit is a white shirt that is collarless, like we used to call it niru back in the day, right? With a few buttons, and then a white sarong, which is just a large white bed sheet wrapped up a special way. And she goes like this: I have 4 son-in-laws, and the only one who wore traditional Sri Lankan clothes to his wedding is the white one, right? So yeah, like really funny, right? So yeah, she's been totally cool with it. Our two, I was blessed with 2 children with her, and I decided to give them Sikh names. So my son's name is Sarblo. My oldest son's name is Sarblo Singh, which means Iron the Lion. And my youngest son's name is Samadhi Singh, which means at peace with the lion, right? And she was totally cool with naming them that, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, right. She's bad cool. She comes to the temple. She's not Sikh. She didn't convert or anything like that. She's a devout Buddhist, right? But when she greets my teacher, my friends, and everything, she's like Sat Sri Akal Ji. She learned a little bit of Punjabi and stuff, right? To kind of, I guess maybe make everything smoother in the interactions and whatnot, right? But yeah, she's a great sport with everything.
So the reason why I bring that up is because I think people listening to this, or just the message that I would like to shine a light on, is I just find it very cool, Brad, that you open yourself up to the unknown, you embrace the unknown, you found beauty in the unknown, and you never let religion, creed, colors, or anything like that limit to how you interact with people and what you think of people, and that's opening you up to a colorful life. I think that's something a lot of people can learn from you, and
Thanks,
just
man.
kind of appreciate people and things and culture, and not have to be like, I'm a Christian, you know, but
Yeah.
why can't we still be friends? You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, totally. Right. Like when I was teaching this, way before I met my wife, I lived with a Muslim mullah who would have been like a Muslim minister. Okay. And he was from Pakistan. And in Pakistan, they also speak Punjabi, right? So he thought like this was the coolest thing in the world. And they obviously understand these terms. Their ancestors used these words. They fought with swords. They know all this stuff. So like he was like, listen, you can live here rent free, no problem, right? I will feed you everything. You teach my kids judo and Shastra Vidya, and we'll call it a deal. And I was like, deal,
Done.
done, right? And I got to, and he was a devout. This is a minister of Islam, right? And he was so kind, so loving, so supportive, right? Um, I've trained like Hindu pundits, right, which are once again like ministers, right? And they're Punjabi, but they're Hindu, right? And when I tell them like all this stuff, they're just like, and I'll give you a perfect example. I worked with this guy. I won't name drop or anything. So sometimes my teacher, he likes to mess with me a little bit, right? So like he says stuff to kind of like throw you off, and he's like, enough Punjabi to like make us smile, but we can still mess with you because you don't understand the culture, right? So he told me this word, right? And it's called, so he teaches us how to move, and then they relate it back to nature, right? So he has like different styles. He has like cockerel, which is like the cock, like a wild bird, right? He has like a cobra style. He has a wild bull style. He has a tiger style, et cetera, right? And there's this one type of energy that you move with, and he calls it vague. And what vague is when a river converges and narrows down, it speeds up. And we see that with like rapids everywhere, right? So I meet this guy at work, and I'm like, yo, you're Punjabi, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm Punjabi. And I start speaking to him, and he's like, oh, wow. And I'm like, listen, man, have you ever heard, and sometimes my accent is off, right? Because obviously I've never been there, right? So I don't fully understand it or get it. I'm like, do you know what vague is? And he's like, what? And I'm like, my teacher messed with me. He got me again, right? And I'm like, vague. He's like, what did you say? And I'm like, oh man, if this guy taught me a bad word to like ask people, I swear to God, I'm gonna like, you know what I mean? I'm gonna get so pissed when I see him next. And he goes, and I said, oh man, am I saying it wrong? Is it my accent? He's like, no. Say it again. And I try to say it with a Punjabi accent, and I'm like, vague. And as soon as I did this, he sat up in his chair and he went like this, and he said, how do you know that word? Right? And I was like, oh wow, like it's true. Like Gurdev wasn't messing with me, right? Like it was true, right? And it means where a river converges, right? And the water flows rapidly, right? And so I was like, oh, okay. And that's how I build relationships and I build friendships with people, because I definitely look like something, but when you hear me talk and interact, you're like, whoa, that's not what I was expecting to find looking the way you do, right?
Or you're the perfect example. I've never judge a book by their cover.
By its cover, yeah, I know, right?
Listen, man, I thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me on. This is a great experience.
Anytime you want to come back on, man, you're more than welcome.
I love it, Mark. You are doing such great work here. I have absolutely loved every morning when I'm running and doing those death runs. I put it on the Parley, right?
Thank you, man.
Right. I was watching your interview with Kung Lee. I was watching the gentleman with the Bondo that like we were discussing, right? These are like people I would love to meet and interact with, right? And just be like, wow, like your knowledge, your story, like really inspired me. Like it really.
And that's the thing, like, well, he's having a cookery camp June 9th, 10th, and 11th. I think I'm going to go up. I think Dave is interested. So,
nice.
Yeah, if you want to come. But like, when I first started doing this, is because during the COVID shit, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't see a lot of my friends, so I was like, I was just like FaceTiming and Zooming people to kind of just shoot the ship. And then I was like, you know what? Everybody's doing podcasts. Let me do podcasts, because it was. I knew it was a historic time that we were living in.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck it, let me document it, right? But then the problem was it became like a negative, like it was always about just COVID. And then I was drinking a lot during it. So I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna have to stop. So I stopped for a long time, and then I kind of was like, you know what, I want to do it again, but I want to do it for like a different reason. I want to shine a light on people who I think are, exceptional or doing exceptional things, or positive things that people can draw inspiration and positive shit from, right? So that's kind of what I want to use it for now, and it seems to be getting a little bit of momentum. Like I said, you know me, I'm not doing this for it to be a big thing. I don't expect it to be a big thing, but I think within the small community, it's good. Like people get to hear about. Like I learned shit about you I didn't know tonight, which is fucking cool, man. I feel like I
And
know
we've
you,
known each other for so long, right?
right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like I didn't know you went to school and actually like invested your. Like that's crazy, man. That's like, you know what? It takes a lot, and that's the other thing too. I think about martial arts that keeps you like, it's the willingness to put yourself out of your comfort zone and be humble, because to go and sit, like for me to go and sit in a Sikh school and learn Punjabi and have everybody's eyes like, what the fuck is this guy here for? But you're there because you want to do it, and then because you want to do it and it's genuine, you earn these people's respect and love, and now you
Yeah.
you have a whole new community open up to you. I think that's amazing. I think a lot of people, just imagine if we all got to just spend a little time educating ourselves on the communities around us, how much more our world would open up to each other.
How much more love could we spread, right? Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's the thing. That's why I was thinking like, yeah, I gotta have this guy come talk about this shit, because it is exceptional, man. You're a cool guy, and I appreciate your friendship. I
I
look forward to
appreciate
coming to your
yours, man.
dojo and fucking getting.
Yeah, you're always welcome to the Brojo, my friend. Okay,
All right,
brother.
brother.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man.
Okay,
Peace out.
take care.